All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, October 19th, and this is Point of View, the show that gets you in tune with news and sports in 30 minutes or less. My name is Rick Daniels. This is Larry West. We got a special guest today. Sorry to meet the country dog.
That's all good.
Janae Austin is here. Janae, say hi to everybody.
Hello, world.
All right, Janae works in admissions. Is it admissions or is it advising?
Advising.
Oh, sorry. Tell us about what you do, Janae. Tell us about your job.
I've been working in the Academic Advising and Exploration Center here on campus at UW-Whitewater since January. So I help freshmen and all undeclared students decide on what classes they're going to take in the upcoming semester. So.
All right, great. Well, we've got a show for you, and if you haven't noticed, we're not doing it live again. I don't know if it was a problem with Ustream or my computer or what, but we are also moving into a new era of Point of View. We have just been picked up by Cable 19, so starting soon, we don't have an exact date yet, but very soon we are going to be stepping it up a notch and broadcasting from the studio at Cable 19 here at the university. So don't get used to this setting here. Don't get used to the whole thing. Broadcasting in different areas, we're going to become very consistent. But beyond that, we've got some great content for you today. So let's kick it off. Of course, national news. We got to start off at the top. The presidential debate, the second debate, round two of the biggest political boxing match in history was this past week. Larry, let's start with you. What did you think about the debate? First of all, who won? Let's start there. Who won the debate and why? Go.
No debate whatsoever. President Obama won, hands down. However, I think we should really looking forward to this third debate to see who the actual winner will be of this one, because this one was going to be on foreign policy. But even jumping back to the last debate, I think President Obama came in much more energized. He got the better of Romney, and he looked much more comfortable than the first one. So, without a doubt, I think he won. There were some blunders on both sides, though.
Janae, what do you think?
Well, before I move forward with sharing my thoughts, I just want to comment on what you stated about the president being more prepared or seeming like he had more energy. We got to keep in mind that he is still working his job, which is the president of the United States. So he don't have, in my opinion, as much time as Romney to be preparing on what he's going to say. I feel that Mitt has been well prepared in what he's going to say. Not saying that it's an excuse for our president not to come with the facts, but he don't have time to just sit around and create this awesome speech. I felt like he done well both rounds.
Right.
And he stated what he has done. He only can repeat what the facts are.
But not to mention that Libya. You had Libya and Benghazi popped up, just around the time that he was getting prepared for this debate. So that's an opportunistic point for the Republican Party and for Romney. That's a point where that's something he's got to deal with every day. So it is something for him to do. But what was the difference? I'll ask this: what was the difference between? And let's focus strictly on Obama. What was the difference between Obama's first debate and this debate?
His whole persona, his whole character. The first one, he looked drowsy, he looked tired, he looked just, he wasn't him. He didn't have charisma. And the second one,
But he's got a surplus of it.
Right, exactly. In the second one, he came out energized. He came out energetic. He came out with that same charisma that we kind of seen in 2008, which really captivates everybody. And he didn't have that in the first one.
Janae, what do you think was the difference? Or what were some of the differences?
Well, the differences that you're stating, I feel like there's reasons behind those, but you're right, I agree with you. But what I enjoyed this second round was that he really, like you said, brought us back in. He wheeled us back in, and it did remind me a lot of how he presented himself back in 2008 to ensure us that we're going to be okay. He's going to continue to do what he said he was going to do back in 2008, what he said he was going to be doing these past 4 years. We just need to offer him that opportunity to finish his term, to do what he said he was going to do. We can't cut this man off in the middle of a sentence. That's just like cutting somebody off while they're talking.
Right.
Yep, good point. Personally, I think Obama was the winner, but there was no. He won, but he didn't win by a landslide. Right. I think one thing we have to realize is, first of all, Obama backers, particularly African Americans, tend to always paint the other party as a bad person. Romney's not a bad person. Is he extremely rich? Absolutely. Did he outsource? Absolutely. I don't think he's the best politician, but he's not a bad guy. He's also not a bad debater. And if Romney, Ryan, Ticky can do anything, they can debate. okay, they're going to make that, they're going to be able to come out and put together a good debate. I think what you have to realize about Obama is what won him the election last time was that charisma. What won him the election last time was that ability to persuade people. I think what's happening in his campaign right now is it's backfiring on him. And so now he spent almost his entire campaign last time in 2008 convincing people that it was going to take more than 4 years to have this done.
Right.
But his campaign was so powerful, people were like, oh, no, we can get it done in 4 years because I believe we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
And so now people are like, well, I didn't vote for this. And no, this is exactly what you voted for. You just have to remember that, after the honeymoon phase and the rah-rah is over, this is what we have to do. This is our reality. And I think he did a good job of reminding people that at this debate.
I agree.
Predictions for debate number 3 coming up on Monday. What do you think?
It's going to be very intense. The topic is foreign policy, so automatically, Obama comes in as a favorite given his record on foreign policy over the last couple of years. But there are questions that need to be answered in terms of the U.S.'s role on the world stage, especially moving forward with Iran and the whole nuclear weapon situation. What happened in Benghazi, he has to be held accountable. He has to answer questions in that fashion. And so I think that's going to be what Mitt Romney pushes on. And I think what you're going to see a pushback from Obama is what you've heard in a lot of the speeches so far is that we ended the war in Iraq responsibly. We're drawing down the war in Afghanistan. We killed Bin Laden. The Taliban is at its weakest stage ever. That's great, but now we got bigger fish to fry. Tell us what you're going to do with Iran. Tell us what you're going to do with
jobs, with the economy.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, Nate. Obama has a tough time defending his record. Although he's done so many great things and he's made a lot of different moves and changes in the last 4 years, he's got a hard time defending his record, particularly on jobs. Why do you think that is?
I think that's because people are attacking him from every way. I mean, this man will tell us how many jobs have been restored since he's been in office. And then you have someone coming behind him saying, no, that's not true. You didn't do that. So I think he's starting to get confused. He's starting to forget, okay, wait, what's going on here? It's just so much coming at him at one time. He can't focus on one thing.
Now, can Obama get, and this is for you particularly because I know you're in finance, can Obama get the employment rate under 7% within the next 2 years? I think midpoint is in the next term. If he wins, can he do that?
Yes, it's possible. However, it needs to be, for one, of course, bipartisan support. But the reality of the situation is sacrifices need to be made on both ends. I mean, because there are a lot of his policies that are actually stunting growth, and there are a lot of the other parties and policies that are going to stunt growth as well. So, it just has to be right there, smack dab in the middle. And every person, and I'm going to say all 4 candidates running, need to put out a platform on what they plan on doing and be real. Because what we heard is a bunch of numbers. Oh, we've had 31 months of consecutive job growth. We've lost 14 million jobs. All these numbers.
Romney's 5-point plan.
Right. Which
is very ambiguous, by the way. I just read it yesterday.
Man, we can get to that.
And I don't want to. This isn't a left-wing show, so if you're watching this and you're voting for the Romney ticket, we're not trying to persuade you. But I think that both parties have an element of ambiguity in this whole election that I think is really confusing both voters. Romney's 5-point plan up into Obama's "what are we going to do next" campaign.
Right.
I think that the ambiguity is what's going to kill both of them. Real quick before we move on, both of you, who's going to win debate number 3?
I'm going to put my money on Obama.
Okay.
Obama.
All right, Obama.
But Mitt Romney will put up a strong fight. I think he'll have a strong defense. So we very well could see a upset, but initially I'm going with Obama.
All right. Did anybody see the Saturday Night Live bit with Joe Biden?
No, I didn't.
No, you gotta see. This is why you guys gotta start watching that stuff.
I did see it.
All right. He said
he goes again.
Yeah, he's gonna come over there and smack that smirk off of Romney's face. All right, so moving on. Arkansas Representative John Hubbard says slavery was a blessing for Black people. What do you guys think about that? Now, Larry, you brought this topic up. Tell us a little bit about it, and then what you think, and then we'll discuss it.
So he wrote a book, and I believe it's a self-published book, or it may not be, but he wrote a book, and he's really looking at a lot of different. He makes a lot of demeaning statements towards a number of different multi-racial ethnic groups. Particularly this one called I, being African American. Slavery should be a blessing because you have the set amount of African Americans or Africans who were brought over here, and that has, essentially evolved into 40 million people living in America, living the American dream, or having the opportunity to live the American dream. So slavery should be a blessing to African Americans, because who knows what life would have been like in Africa. This was the premise of his argument, and he had a lot more involving Latinos and Asian Americans and all these other things. But that's the gist of it.
Wow.
Jay, what are your thoughts on that?
You got to take just a brief little. Really?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing since you started talking. I haven't heard of this guy, haven't heard of this self-published book, but I'm just amazed because I had a million and one questions going through my head as you were talking. What does he mean? African Americans have the opportunity for the American dream. We have a lot of issues that we're dealing with in the U.S. What do you mean? What life could have been like if we were in Africa? Probably better than what's going on here in the U.S. So slavery as a blessing, that's just very disrespectful to our ancestors, heroes and leaders in the community who have fought for us to be where we are. But then to say that all the negative things, the killings, the hatred, the names, everything we went through, our ancestors went through, is a blessing.
I think it's just deeply disrespectful.
Right.
Like you can't. I don't understand how you could be a public figure, a leader, a politician, and make such inflammatory remarks. I mean, how do you suggest that chattel slavery, animal-like slavery, on a group of people should be a blessing because of the position that we're in now?
Oh,
and if you ask me, the position that we're in now is no different from slavery, except we don't have chains and we don't have
Right.
Animal-like slavery would have helped, actually, if they would have treated us like animals. I think that's how bad it was. And when you discuss and research the extent of 246 documented years of oppression in this country, I don't think that there's anyone who can imagine that being a blessing.
Right.
I think that and this is going to be pretty graphic, so we may get some calls on this, but I think what it reminds me of is, or what it puts me in the mindset of, is someone who has been raped, and the person says, "You should thank me for this.
Right.
This was a blessing.
Right.
You should appreciate,
Yeah.
me doing this to you." That's what I feel like when he says those things, and I think that who knows? And he's got a good question. Who knows what it would have been like in Africa? We could have been kings and queens.
Right. Right.
We could have had villages. We could have turned that. In Africa, actually, at the time of colonialism in the early 1600s, it was documented that African countries had the strongest economy and economic stability in the entire world. We were some of the strongest warriors in the entire world. They brought us over here, and they targeted Africa because those were some of the hardest workers, not because they didn't think that we were good people.
hardest workers and richest resources.
There you go. So we had the hardest workers, richest was the biggest gold, biggest population of gold or resource of gold at the time. They brought us over because they knew they could make us work. So it wasn't a blessing. I think if anything, it was a curse that we're still living out.
Yep.
And I think that's an incredibly insensitive remark by Representative Hubbard. Of course, he's a Republican, but that's just those are my sentiments. But that brings back the traditional Republican thought. That this country is better off with black people at the steering wheel, and that's a totally different discussion in itself. So if you're watching this, John Hubbard, I think that what you said was absolutely wrong, and there's no way to express the disgust that I feel in the statement that you made.
And obviously, he needs to go read Frederick Douglass's slave narrative, as well as Harriet Jacobs, as well as the other numbers of countless slave narratives that there are out there, and then tell me again, is that a blessing? And this is ridiculous.
And also, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Leary is also a good read.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Healthcare in the election. Going back to the election, I think that's probably going to carry us all the way through November, maybe. We'll see about that. But healthcare in the election, man, let's talk about Obamacare. Romney says if he wins, which, let's just be honest, there is a good chance. I think there was no chance for McCain and Palin to win last time. But Romney actually has some backing because he's winning in some of the biggest swing states. He says that day one, and we all know he's got a busy day one coming up, but if he wins day one, he's going to repeal Obamacare. How is that going to affect American slavery?
First of all, it won't be day one, it'll be day two. No, we're joking. But realistically, millions of people will lose healthcare benefits. Of course, a huge impact on women in healthcare issues as well. So it's going to be detrimental. But on the other side, there are some real issues with Obamacare. Yes, it does mandate that every individual should have health care. Yes, it does mandate insurance companies provide it at an affordable cost and all those other things. But at the same time, that does have somewhat of a detrimental effect on businesses. So I think there still needs to be some reworking there, especially in terms of small businesses that can't necessarily afford to offer health care to every single employee that they have. I think some reworking needs to be done. Is it a great idea? Yes. Does it need work? Absolutely.
I think anything in the first stages needs work.
Right.
And that's one of the things that Obamacare has done is it has essentially left out the small businesses. However, it has taken money from big businesses and spread it.
Right.
Which in the essence of trickle-down economics and bipartisanship, is taking insurance from or the policies of big businesses and spread it so that people are able to look forward to it. Now, when you got college students coming out with insurmountable debt, which is also a topic that we could discuss, even though it's not on the official agenda, these students at 26 need health care, and they can still be on their parents' health insurance. That's a blessing. Right? That is a blessing, Representative Glover, not slavery. But when you think about how that is going to help people get back on their feet, remain on their feet, and have health care, America's got one of the worst health care systems in the entire world. So to actually do something about it, it's got to say something about the president's leadership. Janae, what do you think about health care in the election? How much of a stronghold do you think it will have, or bearing you think it will have on people, on the voters? What do you think that's going to be?
I think that's one of the top 5, definitely, on what's going to determine who individuals are going to vote for, because that is important, along with, the economy and, other personal reasons why people, want to vote for a certain candidate. But we all need health insurance. We all need the health care, but who can afford it? That's the real question. Who can afford it? I work. I can barely afford my health care plan. We're in the open enrollment stage. I think I want to get a few things cut off of mine just so that I can see my money a little bit more, because it is expensive. But do I need it? Yes. Do children need it? Do young women need it? They do. I don't think that Obama's healthcare plan is also bad. Like you said, a few tweaking here and there. But should we just shut it down?
Oh, no.
No, but I think Mitt is just trying to come in and he's trying to do damage. He's trying to get back at Obama for whatever reason, and he just wants to cut that out, and he has a whole list of other things he plans on doing day 1, day 2, what have you, just to be evil.
I think, essentially, again, like you said, the entire premise, the idea of affordable health care is great.
Right.
We need that here in America, especially when you have all these different healthcare issues rising. But at the same time, again, it needs to be reworked. Again, there needs to be some type of I don't even know how you would phrase it, but it needs to be worked in a way that
it tweaked,
yeah.
revised, but I think it can work.
Absolutely, it has the ability to work.
All right. Moving on, higher education news. Got some exciting stuff here. Abigail Fisher sues University of Texas at Austin because she claims that she didn't get on based upon the fact that she was white. Janae, let's start with you. What do you think about that case? That's being heard by the Supreme Court this week. What do you think about that?
I thought it was actually a very interesting story when I read it. I think so many people, they anticipate minorities pulling the race card, but now it's on the other shoe. And so now she feels like she's been alienated because of her race. But I think it's just a bunch of baloney. She's just trying to stir a ruckus and, push this case forward. And so I don't know how it's going to play out in court, so I'm just eager to see how everything's going to play out.
Larry, what are your thoughts?
I hope that she doesn't win, quite honestly, because I have, I think, a great understanding of what that means for admission for a lot of low-income minority students who aren't as privileged through their K-12 experience as some others are moving forward. I think that'll push everything more towards a merit-based system, and I don't want to discredit merit-based by any means, but the reality of the situation is you have some who don't come from as fortunate backgrounds as others. So if you base everything on merit, you still have inequality. And so I think the more holistic approach that we use in admissions-based standards as UT Austin uses, the better we are. And we'll have a better reflection of what the population actually looks like.
Neither Ms. Fisher or they're using sort of a prototype in this. Her name is find her full name here, Tedra Jacobs. They're using Tedra Jacobs as sort of the prototype because if you go back and look at the admissions records, Tedra basically took Abigail's place. Okay, neither one of them graduated in the top 10% of their class, which by Texas law would give them automatic admittance to a UT system.
Right.
But they were also reviewed under the holistic policy, which basically takes a look at things from all angles, and that's the area she's coming from. What she's looking at, or I guess the major argument here is that we don't live in a post-racial society and it does affect white people. Do we live in a post-racial society? And if so, or if not, are white people affected negatively by that? Larry, let's start with you. What do you think?
Do we live in a post-racial society, post-racist society? No, I think it still exists, however covered up it is. And in terms of it affecting them, let's get it right. The whole idea of this whole affirmative action thing is for basic equality. It's not to set up one person to be more advantaged than the other.
Right.
It's basic equality. It's so that everybody has a fair chance, a guaranteed shot. And so, I mean, that's what it is. And I think they're using it to say that one person is going to be more privileged than the other, and that's not the idea. Especially coming from a population that's been privileged for so long.
Right.
You know, we haven't been privileged for very long. I mean, it was just, you know, my grandpa tells me, he went to UW in the 70s. He tells me about his experiences. We haven't been privileged that long.
Oh man, my grandmother tells me about her experiences. She's 92.
I mean, I take that back. We haven't been privileged that long. We haven't been privileged at all. We've been given opportunities, and we've taken advantage of them. But the playing field still isn't fair. It still isn't level.
Janae, does black privilege exist? Is there such a thing?
I don't believe that. I don't believe there's no such thing as black privilege. If it was, I think that we would have been better off. We have to work twice as hard to prove ourselves.
To reach sea level. To reach basic.
Yes, I agree. So it's hard from in the classroom to the job. I just feel because of my race, I have to work twice as hard for everything that I go for.
You said black privilege there's no such thing as black privilege, it's black opportunity. That's what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Does black privilege exist among other black people?
What do you mean?
Do we have, is there a privilege system set up amongst our own race? Do you have certain types of blacks that get privilege versus other types of blacks?
Yeah, I think so.
Because you know, Chris Rock said there's two types of black people.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris Rock.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. But I think the different privilege comes more financially then when you get to that point. You have your bourgeoisie in a sense, and then you have your middle class down to the poor. And I think the privilege system really exists in that fashion within the young community. And I also still think, I mean, this is even through my experiences at an HBCU, I still think we are still living in Willie Lynch theories where we have the young versus the old, the light versus the dark, and so on and so forth. Definitely. And we have a privilege system set up within that as well. So, yeah, it exists.
Definitely. Okay, we'll keep you posted on the UT Austin case. It is a very interesting case, and quite frankly, she just may win. And that could change some of the affirmative action rules, not only in Texas, but everywhere I don't want to say for the better or worse, but it could change them significantly. And when that does happen, we'll let you know how that works out in point of view. Moving on, we're going to talk about Stevie Wonder, who was supposed to perform at the University of Hawaii, but he was not actually booked for this. According to the Chronicle of Higher Education, $200,000 was wired to a sham talent agency claiming to represent Stevie Wonder, and he never made it there for their homecoming. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do we think about celebrities performing at college campuses? I mean, now it's one thing to have, maybe mid-level celebrities or mid-level artists to perform, but we got some pretty big artists performing at these colleges and universities. They're banging out big bucks. $200,000 is a lot of money to pay. Stevie Wonder's worth every dime, but $200,000 tuition dollars is a lot to pay for an hour. What do you guys think about celebrities performing at college campuses? Does it exploit the college system?
I think it exploits it just like a lot of other things that are non-academic related. You have these big over-the-top football athletic stadiums. You have these over-the-top university student union centers and all those other things. I think it's all a part of marketing. It's a strategy for the university to draw in more students. If you could bring a group of impressionable freshmen in and say, we've had Stevie Wonder here, we've had this person here, we've had that person here, that sells me more than you telling me, we have one of the best programs here. I mean, that's kind of the generation that we have, unfortunately, but it's a marketing strategy. Is it fair? No, I'd like to see tuition dollars used in other ways, but that's
like scholarships.
Yeah.
More affordability, access.
I think college is certainly a microcosm. It's a small world, and so when you talk about people who go to college, it's almost like a different country in so many senses, especially at universities that are really big. So when you bring those types of artists in, or when you have those types of marketing tools, it's really like marketing any other level or area of business that you have. So is it unfair that they spend $200K on Stevie Wonder? It's a little unfair when you think about what those funds could be used for.
Right.
But at the same time, I think you made up a good point with football and sports and over-the-top games and books and things like that. These college players are playing, at damn near professional level.
Yeah.
I mean, that's professional football, really.
Right.
But they don't get paid for it.
Right.
And that's a different issue.
If they do accept any type of payment or anything like that.
Oh man, strip. Look at the Fab Five. They put Michigan basketball on the map. I know we've got a lot of other guys who went to Michigan. Nobody looked at Michigan basketball the way they did until Fab Five. Not only did they change Michigan basketball, they changed professional basketball, college basketball, pretty much forever. And those guys are stripped from the record now. So I think it's incredible that that amount of money is spent. But then, of course, when it goes to a sham talent agency and that money is nowhere to be found, that's not only incredibly embarrassing, that is also really, that's a whole lot of money. Let's just put it that way. We've only got about 5 minutes left, so I want to cover this topic. Larry, you put me onto this. Educational goals are being set by race in Florida.
Yes.
They're going to measure their student goals based upon race. Tell me what you know about that and what you think.
So they have a new standards-based approach, and they set out standards for each individual race. So you have Asians who have a 90% proficiency expectancy. You have Caucasian Americans who fall slightly below that, but then again you have African Americans and Hispanic Americans at the tail end with the expectancy of about 69 to 70% proficiency. And the whole the idea or the argument to fire back is to say that, well, by the year 2025 or something like that, everyone is expected to be 100% proficiency.
Is that possible under this?
Let's be realistic. No, it's virtually impossible under any mandate that you put into place. And so what are you doing? You're lowering standards for a lot of students who are already underprivileged or who are already underprepared in many instances. And so when they have an opportunity to come to a university, what are they going to have? 78% proficiency?
You're lowering the standard for what you already see as a lower standard.
As a lower standard, exactly.
Wow. Janae, what do you think about that? We've got, here's some of the facts here, folks. In Palm Beach County, the school system there wants to have 90%, these are the goals here. They got 90% of Asian students, 80% of white students, 81% of Hispanics, 74% of black students to be reading at or above the grade level, okay? For math, the goals are 92% of Asians, 86% of whites, 60% of Hispanics, and again, 74% of African Americans to be proficient in math by the time, by the goal, which is actually 2018. What do you think about some of those goals? Number one, are they realistic? And secondly, here's the part two of that question: why are blacks last on this totem pole? Blacks are already coming in last. Why is the percentage of what their goal is so low for African American students? What do you think?
A lot of institutions already put minority students on the bottom of the totem pole. For example, most universities identify minority students as at risk. So they have different services or ways that they work with those students. Some are good, some are horrible. I think a lot of institutions can do better. Am I surprised? No. Do I think it's realistic? No. I don't think it's realistic. And I'm not surprised that they put African Americans at the bottom because they do it now. It's already happening.
It's just as disrespectful as the politicians' remarks about slavery being a blessing.
Right.
Like it's disrespectful, blatantly disrespectful. Right. And the only way to really rise up and really achieve something in this country is through education. Yeah. And if you lower your standards,
it's the one thing nobody can take away.
Exactly. Right. If you lower your standards, and I'm not as equally or above educated as everyone else, then how am I going to survive? How am I going to succeed?
Wow.
That's capitalism at its finest, in my opinion. Keeping somebody at the bottom.
That's good. There you go. All right, we've got about 2.5 minutes here. We're going to move on to sports. Dirk Nowitzki had knee surgery yesterday. Are the days of wine and roses done? in the Dallas Mavericks franchise, Larry? What do you think?
Throw in your towel. Dirk is done. I mean, he may have a year or two left in him. That's good, but as far as the Dallas Mavericks, they didn't land Dwight. They have a possibility of landing him if he doesn't re-sign with the Lakers, but they didn't. Darren Williams has already signed.
It's not going to happen.
They don't have any good free agents to go after to really rebuild the franchise to hold up Dirk's legacy. Period.
Why it took Mark Cuban so long to build a successful team? Why in the world couldn't he sustain it?
Because he unlike any other owner and GM, they're planning for the future. They're planning off seasons ahead, and so they cleared out their whole roster under the premise that they would get Dwight Howard. That fell through, so now they have to rebuild via first-round draft picks and low salaries.
Interesting. Janae, are you a big basketball fan? Because that's what we tend to talk about on the show.
No.
It's okay for now. Okay, all right. That's okay. We don't talk about sports. We talk about basketball. I'm sorry. It's just how we do things here. If you want to go watch football, SportsCenter has a great program. And they've got some good football coverage there. Real quick, LeBron, could he go to the Lakers in 2014 offseason?
Man, this was something that's been popping up. The Lakers are possibly planning for Kobe Bryant to retire.
And we know Dwight Howard's not going to stay.
Yeah.
He's going to Brooklyn. Let's just be honest. After this 1 year, he's going to Brooklyn. Can they land LeBron? What do you think?
I don't think they can land LeBron. Honestly, my opinion is that LeBron is either going to stick with Miami or find his way back to Cleveland. You heard it here first. On Point of View, when it happens, don't sound surprised.
LeBron's going back to Cleveland. That's my opinion. He actually said that in at a press conference last year. He said that he'd be interested in going back to Cleveland. I don't think Miami is his home. I think Cleveland is, and I think I'm headed home now, and so are you, because we are out of time. Thank you for watching Point of View. Again, Rick Daniels, Larry West, and Janae Austin, our very special guests. Thank you so much, Janae, for coming on behalf of the Point of View family. Donald Dantzler is out again this week. He's in D.C. getting some information for us and gathering up some stories to report back on next week. We're going to be on a new channel, Cable 19, and that is the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater channel, but we will still be streaming via Ustream, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, so be on the lookout. Once again, Point of View has been with you this week, and thank you for tuning in. We will see you next week.
Love, live, life, peace.
Peace out.